Good evening, every pony. My name is Emerald Comet, and it's time once again to review another fanfiction of the pony variety. Today's fanfic being 5 Things That Never Happened to Twilight Sparkle by Obib Scribbler, who, for those of you who don't know, is a very talented writer and voice actress. This lady has made some great stories, and this is one of her more popular ones. And, honestly, I can see why, because there are some great things in this story. But, unfortunately, there's also some things that aren't so great. And with that said, I think I should start talking about the fic before somebody decides to throw a wine bottle at their screen. 5 Things That Never Happened to Twilight Sparkle is a dark alternate universe story, and is a compilation of 5 short stories, each of which takes a different event from the show, and changes the decisions that Twilight made during these events to create a much darker outcome. Going into the fic originally, I thought that all the stories were going to tie together somehow to create one big overarching plotline. But once I started reading, I realized that if that was the case, Equestria would probably end up looking something like this. So let's take a look at these 5 stories individually and see how each of them holds up. Also, spoiler warning. You know, just in case. So the first story takes place during the first part of the Season 1 opener. We all know the story. Twilight is trotting back to her house to learn more information about the elements of harmony in Nightmare Moon. She is approached by 3 ponies who invite her to a party for another pony named Moon Dancer, and instead of rejecting them, like she does in the show, she instead decides to accept their invitation and go to the party. This results in her never meeting her friends in Ponyville and Nightmare Moon bringing about Eternal Night. Now, I really don't like to jump straight into the negative, but my main problem with the first story is that it ignores the continuity from the show. Celestia stated at the end of the second episode that she saw the signs of Nightmare Moon's return. She also said that she knew that Twilight was the only one with the magic inside of her to defeat her and reactivate the elements again. Yet in the story, we see Celestia watching Twilight walk off with the ponies to go to the party, and she just brushes it off. You'd think that she'd be more concerned, or, I don't know, maybe send an extra couple of hundred or so guards to Ponyville to oversee the festival, but no! Nothing! She just lets her crazy sister bring about Eternal Night again. Yeah, Celestia, all those ponies who love the day so much and would probably fall into a huge depression if they never saw the sun again are just gonna have to learn to roll with the new monarchy like you apparently are. On the upside, though, one thing I did like was the reason why Twilight made her choice in the first place. She starts thinking back to a conversation that she and Shining Armor had where he asked her to go out and socialize, and she decides to go with the girls based on this conversation. It really does get across how much Twilight values her brother and the advice that he gives, and Scribbler's writing also conveys the great sense of a sibling bond that these two share. At the very least, it shows that Scribbler knows how to write Twilight and Shining Armor together very well. The second story takes place during Swarm of the Century, at the point where Twilight casts her spell to remove the Parasprite's hunger for all the food in Ponyville. While casting the spell, however, she also takes into account that the Parasprites might instead start eating all the buildings around Ponyville, and enhances the spell to stop that from happening. However, something goes wrong, because magic logic, and instead the Parasprites start eating the citizens instead. Holy shit, man. Anyway, out of all the stories, this one was probably my favorite. I found it the most enjoyable to read, and I have to give huge props to Scribbler for writing a brilliantly scary scenario. Though there is one thing that I do want to talk about, and it's not really in relation to the story itself, it's more to do with some things that were brought up in the comments. Apparently, people say that the story was based around a joke that came from a picture, this picture to be more specific, and that it wasn't meant to be taken seriously. I'm not sure if Scribbler did get the idea from the photo, and I do get the dark humor behind it, but I ask that you stop and think for a second. Think about what a Parasprite is and what they do. All these things do is eat and reproduce. Given the size of the horde that there was when Twilight cast her spell, I'd be willing to guess that the population of Ponyville would be dead within, let's say, an hour or less. Now imagine a swarm of the same size and power going buzzing through a huge major metropolitan area. A huge swarm of flesh-eating bugs that are very difficult to kill because they keep reproducing, whose only goal is to eat every single living creature in sight. I'm willing to bet that your pants are feeling a little bit damp right now, aren't they? Moving on to story number 3, which takes place during the return of Harmony, as we see a defeated and grey Twilight walking home while being mocked by Discord. After taunting her and proclaiming that Harmony in Equestria is finally dead, Twilight runs up to a ravine and transforms a large group of candy canes that are lying at the bottom of it into shards of glass, and throws herself on top of them. Yeah, this one was pretty short, but in this story's case, I don't really see that as a bad thing, as I think there's not really a lot that can be tweaked when you're dealing with the setting. The problem is just that there isn't a lot that I can say about it. The one thing that I can say, though, is that the writing for Twilight, as well as the thoughts that go through her head, are excellent. You really do feel bad for Twilight when she starts going over the facts in her head about how she failed Celestia, and the fact that she lets all this get to her so much that she feels that suicide is the only way out is just heart-wrenching to read. Though if I was to mention one negative thing, it would be that when Twilight runs up to the ravine, she's greeted by a large group of trees with marshmallows hanging off them, because Discord logic, that are all singing in dramatic choir, which I couldn't help feel was a bit too heavy on the melodrama. But overall, I think this story is pretty well written as well. The fourth one, though, I'm still not sure how to feel about. It takes place during the end of the first part of a Canterlot wedding, aka the best season finale yet, after Twilight calls Cadence out on being a love-sucking parasite. After being scorned by her brother and friends, Twilight overhears Shining Armor and Cadence talking. She hears how distraught the imposter Cadence is and feels that she's ruined their wedding day and decides to run away from Canterlot. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that I can say about this one either. It's just too short to give me anything to work with. Though I think I would have liked this story a bit more if it had taken a different route from the one that it did take. Like, instead of Twilight running away, it ended with Chrysalis confronting Twilight in the throne room, and instead of sending her to the mines, she, killed her. I would look at the writing between Twilight and Shining, but really, nothing was changed from the episode in terms of their interactions. Twilight still had the same feelings of regret and sadness that she had in the episode, and no other drastic changes were made in terms of her thoughts. Nothing really struck me as being particularly great in this story. It's not terrible, it's just kind of meh. The final story takes place during the Crystal Empire Part 2, with Twilight at the top of the castle with the Crystal Heart. Rather than knocking the heart away, she grabs hold of it out of fear that Sombra will target Spike and try and kill him. She gets cornered by Sombra while trapped inside the cage of black crystals, and I think you can figure out what happens from there. This story, thankfully, was another good one. Mostly because of Sombra. I just love how threatening he is when he corners Twilight. He's legitimately scary and menacing, and his actions and dialogue help make the story very tense. Also, I love the little mention of Twilight's Rapidash form when she gets mad and starts yelling at Sombra. So with all the stories covered, let's recap what Equestria would look like if all these stories did tie into one another. There would be 5 different Twilights, Nightmare Moon brought about eternal night, the population of Ponyville was all eaten alive, Discord won and brought about eternal chaos, Chrysalis took over Canterlot, and Sombra enslaved the Crystal Ponies. I think someone needs to tell Celestia to get up off her throne and start doing her job. So, all things considered, I think this story's pretty solid. The first and fourth stories are really the only clinkers, but I think the other 3 make it more than worthy of a read. Well, that's all I have to say about this one, but before I head off, I do need to draw attention to something. For those who are aware of Ubub Scribbler's YouTube channel, she has released a radio play called The Heroic Tale of Heroically Heroic Heroes. Recently, the person who plays the part of one of the main characters, Pounce of Pounceville Gaming, has had a stroke, which has caused him to become paralyzed down the right side of his body. Pounce is 26 years old, and as of this recording, he's currently in the intensive care ward in California. Scribbler, as well as many other members of the Heroic Tales cast, have already put out their own videos asking for people to help him by donating to his PayPal account, which is on his website to help him pay his medical bills, since he can't by himself. So to help spread the word, I'm linking to Pounce's website in the description where you can help him by donating to his PayPal account. Any donation, no matter how small, is greatly appreciated, and all proceeds go toward paying his medical bills. With all that said, thank you for watching, and please consider doing whatever you can to help Pounce recover. Once again, I'm Emerald Comet, and I'll see you all next time.